Even a man who is pure of heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf's bane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are doing another movie review. This is the immortal classic from the Universal Monsters series, and that is The Wolfman. From 1941, starring Lon Chaney Jr. as Larry Talbot. Also starring Claude Rains as Sir John Talbot. And as Colonel Montford, we have Ralph Bellamy, and as Gwen, we have Evelyn Ankers. And we also have Bella, as played by the legendary Bela Lugosi, who previously played Dracula for Universal Pictures. So, out of all the Universal monsters, I kind of find myself watching this one like the most. I mean, I really connect with Larry Talbot's character. He's such a tragic character, you know. He didn't ask for what happened to him. He didn't ask to be bit by a werewolf. He didn't ask to kill people at night when the moon is full, you know. He has no control whatsoever of what he does, or who he kills, or who he terrorizes. And I love that about the film. It's such a tragic character. I love it. So the film opens with Larry returning to his childhood home to visit his father after his brother died. And he tries to reconnect with his father. They had been estranged for a while. And, you know, he kind of settles in. He kind of moves back in. And so he falls for a girl who lives across the street, who works at an antique shop by the name of Gwen, played by Evelyn Ankers in the film. It's kind of a funny scene, too, when he first sees her. He's playing around with this huge telescope that you can see the moon and stuff with. But he turns it on her apartment and kind of stares at her through the window. I'm like, that's a little bit creepy, dude. It might be considered stalking. But at any rate, Lawrence Talbot is he's a very charming guy, a very likable guy, and I absolutely love the performance by Lon Chaney Jr. in the film. It's probably my favorite acting performance out of the Universal Monsters. With the exception of maybe Dracula. You know, I may be overstepping my bounds there. But at any rate, when he meets Gwen, he finally gets up the nerve to go over there to the antique shop. And he flirts with her and stuff. He decides he wants to buy something, you know, just to kind of get on her good side. And he purchases this cane, and the cane has a silver handle, and it's a wolf on top. And it's got the symbol of the pentagram on it, which is the symbol of the werewolf. At least in this film it is, anyway. And Gwen goes on to tell the story of the werewolf legend, and she recites the poem that I just recited earlier. And several people say that throughout the film. I guess everyone in town kind of knows about the werewolf legend, except Larry Talbot. But he's about to get real acquainted with it soon, you know. So he takes Gwen out on a date. He takes her for a walk, and he wants to have her fortune told. And the funny thing is, Gwen's actually engaged to be married. She's kind of cutting in on the territory there. But she falls for him too, you know. She flirts right back with him, you know. She's a little hesitant at first, but she does kind of fall into the spell. They kind of fall in love a little bit, you know. And so they take a stroll late at night, and, you know, it's a great gothic setting with the fog in the air. They're walking through the woods. So classic for, you know, the Universal monster films, and I love that classic black and white. It really adds to the atmosphere. I love it. And of course we meet the gypsies, and one of them is played by Bela Lugosi, and he plays Bella, the gypsy. And he does a fantastic job, as always. You know, he's a fantastic actor. And also the little old lady is like the gypsy who is his mother. So yeah, there are a couple of gypsy fortune tellers, and Gwen actually brings her friend along, to kind of protect her in case he hits on her, It's things you did back then, to break the ice, kind of, when you first start dating someone. And so Bella tells the gypsy tells the fortune of the young girl who is Gwen's friend. I believe her name was Jennifer. And he starts freaking out, like, whoa, because he sees her future, and her future's pretty grim. And he looks at her hands. He grabs her hands, and he starts freaking out again. He sees the star, the symbol of the pentagram on her hand, and he starts freaking out. She's like, what? What's the matter? What's my future? What's going on? And he's like, go, get out, leave now. And she freaks out, okay. And she runs off into the woods in the pitch black night with the fog through the woods. And she's chased by a werewolf. And so Lawrence Talbot sees the girl struggling and getting bit by the werewolf, and he attacks the werewolf and bashes him with the stick, the silver stick, the silver cane that he bought from the antique gift shop, where his girlfriend Gwen works. And turns out silver can kill a werewolf, Who knew? So yeah, he attacks the werewolf and kills it, but in the process he gets bit himself. And you know what happens when that happens, when you get bit by a werewolf? The gypsy fortune teller explains that to Larry. He who is bitten by a werewolf will become a wolf himself. This movie's so classic. I love the gothic atmosphere. I just love the old classic Universal monster films. Anytime it's Halloween, I have to bust them out and watch them all. And this collection here is great. It's got all the Wolfman movies. It's got The Werewolf of London, which was the original attempt by Universal to do werewolf films, but it wasn't very successful. So they took a second shot and they hit gold with The Wolfman, starring Lon Chaney Jr. And then later on they did Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, where Bela Lugosi actually played Frankenstein's monster in the film. I also love that film. And the thing is, about every sequel that Lon Chaney stars in as the Wolfman, he does such a wonderful job. And I think he's like the best part of the sequels, like House of Dracula and House of Frankenstein. He's always so fantastic in the role of Larry / Lawrence Talbot. Again, such a tragic character, and I love his performance. He's so relatable, he's so likable, and you really, really feel bad for him, because he's such a good guy. You don't want this to be happening to him. And throughout the film, once he finally realizes what's happened, and then when the moon is bright, and he becomes a werewolf. And he starts to become like suicidal because, he wants to be chained up at night because he doesn't want to hurt anybody, And yeah, that's one of the things I love about the film, is the tragedy of his character. He has no control over who he kills or what he does at night when the moon is full, and he tells his friends, he tells Gwen, he tells his father. And his father kind of tries to cover up for him, even when the police are out to get him. He's the main suspect in the killings. And one of the policemen, Ralph Bellamy's character, Colonel Montford. Sorry, I forgot the name for a second. They find his walking stick, his cane, at the scene of the murder. So he's pretty much screwed. There's all kinds of evidence against him, and when he tries to show him, when he tries to explain what happened, that they just think he's crazy and he's a lunatic and that he's like this crazed killer, And he tries to explain, no, Bella was a werewolf and I killed him and I got bit, and he tries to show the bite, but it doesn't show, Only he can see it. Nobody else can see the bite. Yeah, so it's such a great film, such a classic film. I absolutely love the score, and I love the direction by George Waggner. He does a fantastic job directing the film. I love the makeup job. Look at that, I love it. I think it still looks awesome to this day, the makeup job on the Wolfman. Yeah, it is kind of primitive effects when you see him change, you know. But there's something about that. It's so charming. I love that, you know. That slow transformation we see the hair start to come out, you know. And then his face is covered in hair, and you see the fangs. And it's kind of funny in a little way when you see him walk on his hind legs, and it's really like he's just tiptoeing around. It's so classic. I just love it. I absolutely love this film. It's one of my favorite of the Universal monster films. So guys, please run and buy The Wolfman if you can get this collection right here. It's such a fantastic collection. But however you get it, you know, get it on DVD, get it on Blu-ray. There's so many different collections of the Universal monster films. See all the sequels, see Dracula, see Frankenstein, see The Wolfman. I love these figures. I always show these busts off whenever I talk about Universal monster films. This actually came with my package of DVDs. I think they're beautiful. Look at the detail on that. But anyway, I absolutely love the film. I love Lon Chaney Jr.'s performance. I love the entire cast of the film is fantastic, including Evelyn Ankers as Gwen. So definitely, guys, if you haven't seen the film, you absolutely must see it. And bust it out every Halloween. Grab all your Universal classic monsters and watch them on Halloween. Have a big marathon. Watch all the sequels. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.